Before you start touring at homes, before you start making offers, before you do any of that stuff, this is one of the biggest foundation pieces for you in your home buying process, and that's getting pre-approved. Let's talk about pre-approvals today. I'm excited to get going. My name is Kyle Powers, Haven Real Estate Group at eXp Realty here in Manhattan, Kansas, and I am your local real estate expert. Let's jump right in. First thing I want to talk to you about is why a pre-approval matters. So many times I get buyers that come in and they're like, oh, we don't want to get pre-approved because it messes with our credit, or it does this, or because my mom's brother told me it wasn't a good idea. Okay, fair. Here's the thing. It is really, really important to understand in the beginning what your numbers look like. Otherwise, you're shopping blind. If I'm looking at $500,000 houses, but my budget only allows me to pay for $300,000, well, okay, we don't know that unless we understand what that pre-approval looks like and we do our deep dive and talking with our lenders. Unless you're paying cash, obviously it's a whole different game then. But that pre-approval is very important. It gives us a budget to work off of. And again, just because you're pre-approved for 500 doesn't mean we have to spend that. We can still keep you around 300. But now we know if we have some wiggle room, if we are pushed up against your absolute ceiling at 300,000, we need to know that. You need to know that. I need to know that. And the sellers need to. No, they don't need to know it, but you understand. That's the thing. So number one, it gives us a budget to work off of. That's why it's important. Number two, it shows the sellers that we're serious. And it also shows that you have had somebody looking at your finances. Again, if you watched my last video, you understand I'm not the one looking at your finances. Quite honestly, I don't care about your finances. As long as you have that pre-approval, I'm ready to roll and get you taken care of. I don't know how many times we have avoided, wasted time and wasted energy and then been able to be like, hey, you've got this issue. We need to get that taken care of. I promise you it's a lot easier to get it taken care of before we put a house under contract, and then you don't have two other parties, technically, seller and seller's agent, involved in that, and then it makes things a lot smoother and a lot less surprises, a lot less bumps, makes it be way less stress as well. So that is why a pre-approval is very, very important. So the next question is always, how do I get pre-approved? Glad you asked. Working with lenders. So I always recommend talking to a couple people. Obviously, I've got lenders that I will highly, highly recommend. My people do a fantastic job, whether it's a bank or whether it's local. If you come to me with people too, I will work with anybody. But having a good lender is very, very important. I've got lenders that they don't freak out over certain little things. And I like that, because if they freak out, you freak out, and now I've got to control everybody, because then it's like, okay, take it down a notch. Let's figure out how to get through this. We don't have problems. We only have an opportunity to make solutions, right? So what I want to do is get you in touch with a particular lender, whoever it may be. Typically, I always think like, okay, you'd be a good fit for this person, or you'd be a good fit for this person. What does that look like? How do we get this finagled to make sure it's good? Again, just like with a buyer agent, sometimes you aren't going to work well with this lender, and sometimes you'll be great with this lender. Great. Talk to them, meet them, and introduce yourself. Work through some stuff with it, because not every lender is created equal. Not even every lender offers the same thing. A lot of them do, but this is a large chunk of money, right? Whether it's $100,000 or $1 million, I want you to understand that you have the option for a lender. And that's your option. I will give you some suggestions, and we'll get you on that side of it, but you have those options and have the ability to kind of shop around. And I think the big one for me is that you don't have to go to your bank in order to get that pre-approval. Sure, maybe it's one of them on your list, but just because your bank is sitting at bank A does not mean you have to go there to get a loan. You can go to broker A and broker B and this bank and whatever that looks like. You can go shop around a little bit just to make sure you're getting the best deal. The one thing I would recommend when choosing a lender is choosing somebody local. There's something different about being able to look at somebody, see the whites of their eyes, to understand what that looks like. So that's what I would recommend on that side of it. So then once you get to that point, you choose your lender, you're going to gather all the required information. tax returns, bank statements, income, W-2s, the checks, pay stubs, those kinds of things, making sure you're getting all of that information gathered. You're going to need it regardless if you go to 1, 2, or 3 banks. You're going to need that information. So having that ready and having that compiled is going to be very important. And if you go into a bank and say, hey, here's everything you need. Here's the last 2 years tax returns. Here's this, here's this, here's this. They're going to be like, holy shit, this is great. Absolutely, let's get you taken care of. That'll be good. Having all that information compiled. They're always going to ask for more. Just expect that. But it is important to have all that stuff ready. You go in, you submit your application to whichever bank. They're going to look at credit. They're going to look at all that stuff. Just getting it submitted is going to give us that opportunity to really have that clear picture. Because, and I've seen this happen before, there's something that maybe happened 10 years ago. If you're not monitoring your credit, that's been affecting you ever since. That is a very easy fix or an easy cleanup if you just do it the right way. So having that stuff, getting the credits pulled, it's part of it. And if you're pulling multiple times from multiple different banks, the credit bureaus, they look at that and say, oh, they're doing their due diligence. We're not going to dock them too many points for just checking on banks and checking rates and stuff that way. So now, don't go do 30 banks, but 1, 2, 3, 4 banks or 4 people that you're looking at, having them pull your credit typically doesn't affect your credit score too much. Just kind of be aware of that. Then once you get all that stuff, they look at it and say, okay, yep, you're good to go. Here's your pre-approval. Go look for houses and let me know when you're ready to buy. Next question I always get is, what are lenders looking for? What lenders are looking for, they're looking at your credit scores. They're looking at your debt to income ratios. They're looking at your employment history. They're looking at your savings for a down payment. How much money do you have sitting in the bank ready to go? And they're looking at everything encompassing. This is when they look at you and what you look like on paper. What does all of those things look like? And are you a good candidate for a loan? There's typically certain debt ratios that they look at, debt to income ratios that they look at, that you'll hear like, 50% DTI or 30% or 0% DTI. Like there's always something, that you're always looking at. And so having your DTI, having your debt to income ratio lower is very, very beneficial, I guess. Let's say your question is, well, my credit score isn't really up to par or what it needs to be. That's okay. Because here's the thing, you guys, is that there are options. And when I say this cliche or when I say this term, there's a million ways to skin a cat. There really is. And there's a VA loan that is 0% down, an FHA loan that's 3.5% down. There's a 3% down conventional. You name it. There are hundreds and hundreds of ways to actually get loans, DSCR loans, and there's grants, and there's all kinds of stuff out there. I would tell you that getting a very clear picture, having your credit run and things that way. I've got a lender of mine that does a fantastic job. She looks at it and says, okay, you are here. If you do this, this, and this, you'll bump your credit score up by 30 points, 40 points, and you'll be more than well good enough for your credit score and to get you into a loan. And it really is that simple, where you can do within a month that your credit score gets bumped up. That opportunity to do that is fantastic, and having that knowledge is great to have in your corner when it comes to that stuff. So having that opportunity to bump your credit scores and having that clear picture is very important when you are going through what lenders are looking for and what you can kind of expect there. Benefits of a pre-approval. Number one, it's going to give you a very clear picture of, one, what your budget is, two, what your financial picture looks like, and if there's any maintenance or any work that needs to be done to your credit score, to your financial position, everything else that comes with that. Then it speeds up and makes our offer process so much clearer, so much smoother, so much stronger as well. And that's the next one, is it puts you in a much stronger position to make an offer on a house. Because here's the thing, if I have an offer on a house and this buyer has no pre-approval, then you come in and say, hey, this one's pre-approved, good to go with local bank, blah, 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 we're good to go here. Well, great, this guy's not ready. I'm going to go with this guy 100% of the time. Or at least as an agent, I'm going to recommend that the sellers go with that person, because nobody's looking at their finances. they may only be worth or only approved for 100 grand. But if you have a $350,000 offer out and you're approved for 400 grand, fantastic. I'm going with you all day long because you've already got somebody looking at your finances. So that's 3 of the biggest benefits of that one. Again, making an offer right now with a pre-approval is almost like making it with cash. Not necessarily in the fact that you're going to be able to close in 7 days. However, I have had banks do that. But making sure that someone knows that you have that financial backing, because that's what it is. They're agreeing to give you X amount of dollars with collateral of the house, but it is important to understand that. A lot of frequently asked questions. This is probably probably my biggest section for this one, but I'm only going to hit a couple for you. Does getting pre-approved lock me into that particular lender? No, it doesn't. I have clients all the time come in. They come in with a Veterans United or a Navy Federal or whatever the big guys, the Wells Fargos and all that stuff. This is where I get it very important, where it's like, okay, great. This is fantastic. Somebody's looked. We at least got a pre-approval. We can start looking. However, I would still be talking to some of our local people. That's where I get seeing the whites of someone's eyes is very important because, excuse my language, but if shit hits the fan in the middle of an appraisal, which it has happened, and somebody at Navy Federal and you're just a phone number on a phone, they're not necessarily going to go crazy with like, hey, what about this? Can we do this? Make sure we understand this. This appraiser's this. Like having that local person and that local knowledge is very, very important to have. So you're not locked into that particular lender until you go under contract. Then at that point in time, I don't ever recommend changing lenders because that typically extends the process, not making us being able to not hit our closing dates and things that way. Then it gets really messy if we go past closings. Let's just not do that. Next question I always get asked is, well, when should I get pre-approved and how long does it last? Well, I think it really just kind of depends on where you're at in the process. Typically, a pre-approval lasts 60 to 90 days. But I also know that, lenders will extend those and do all that kind of stuff if they know that your financial picture hasn't changed. And what I mean by that is you didn't go out and buy a car. You didn't go out and finance thousands and thousands of dollars on furniture, or your credit cards haven't been racked up and everything that way. So as long as your financial picture hasn't changed, you should be okay to go and do that and kind of move into that. That 60, 90 days is kind of a good window to be in. But also, you're going to need that before we actually start physically looking at houses. Just again, it gives us that very clear picture. So long story long, 60 to 90 days is what I would recommend as far as the kind of the timeline that they last. So the next one is, well, I'm self-employed, so what do I do with that one? Well, there's a lot more documentation that comes with that. Typically, if you're self-employed, the lenders are looking for 2 years of history. So essentially 2 years of tax returns. There is some finagling that some lenders can do if you're like at a year and a half and you want to get into something. They can usually finagle a little bit in that. But I always recommend 2 years is what I would shoot for. If you're close, reach out to me. I can get you with one of my people that does a fantastic job with self-employed borrowers. There's ways that you can add people to a loan and things. I've got clients of mine right now that they honestly were told, oh, well, you've got 2-3 years before you can buy a house. I got them with one of my lenders and I said, hey, I think we can get you in sooner. Let's just talk to my lender here, and I think she can really help you. So she did. She talked to him. The buyer talks to her and says, oh yeah, we can get you pre-approved today. You can go buy a house. And I'm not joking, you guys. It took me 2 weeks. So we went from 3 years, could never buy a house, to 2 weeks we're under contract. We close on their house next week. Super, super ecstatic. She runs a daycare, so she writes off. Like, it's just the way that worked is just like, those are the stories that I love to hear, because people are thinking, I'm years away from buying a house, to no, you're good. We can do this today. You should have seen it. It was such a heartwarming feeling of just being like, no, this is your home. You can be here and you can own this place instead of doing it that way. Fun part, we got to actually find out later that the husband is the house that they're buying is on the house or on the street that his grandma and grandpa used to live on. So it's just a fun opportunity to kind of see this all kind of come together. So Anyway, I go off on a tangent there. If you're ready to take the next step on getting pre-approved or just have questions in general, put it in the comments below, because if you've got questions, I guarantee you somebody else does too. Always reach out to me. My personal cell phone number is 785-477-5485. My email is kyle@homesforsalemhk.com. And I tell you this because I'm not going to stress you out. I'm not going to lock you into a long-term contract. I just want to help educate you through the process and kind of walk you through what that looks like on buying. Whether you're an experienced buyer or a first-time buyer, I want to help you and refresh you and teach you what this process looks like, because it is a fun time. It really is, and it really should be. So I want to make sure that you are taken care of and make sure that you and your family are making the right decisions. If you have questions or if you want my trusted list of lenders, I will absolutely love to give that to you. Reach out, shoot me an email, whatever that looks like, I'll get you taken care of. And thank you so much for watching these videos. I really do appreciate it. As always, go and hit that subscribe button, go and hit that little bell so that way you get notified of our future videos. And please, please, please like, comment, share, whatever that looks like. I want to help you grow, and I want to help people understand the buying process, because too many times nobody understands it. And too many times they get taken advantage of, whether intentionally or unintentionally, from buyer agents, just because sometimes the buyer agents themselves don't know. They're not taught the process. They don't understand what it actually looks like. So I want to help educate you, the public, and everybody else. So like, comment, share on this video and what we can do on that side of it. Stay tuned for the next video, because once you're pre-approved, the fun starts, right? We get to actually go start the home search and start looking at houses and giving in to what we start dialing in, what it is that you want and what your family needs and everything else that looks like. I appreciate you guys watching. Until next time.